Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to another of our ISM Lunch and Learn webinars. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Sage Fixed Assets program with Mr. Robert Ruscinello as our presenter. We have a lot more coming up for you this month, so please take a look at our calendar, a lot of events this month. And with all of that, I'm going to turn everything over to Robert. Robert, thank you and welcome.
Great, thank you, Sherry. Okay, so we're going to be taking a look at Sage Fixed Assets. If you already own fixed assets, we're going to maybe cover a few things that you may not be aware of. If you don't own fixed assets, I'm going to try and give you a short rundown of what you can do, because most of our clients still track assets in Excel, which is great until you have to enter in much more data, or of course if you have a lot of assets, Excel can get somewhat unwieldy with its formulas. Sage Fixed Assets gives you a way to store those assets, run depreciation, and just do a whole bunch of other things. So I'm going to give a quick overview of Sage Fixed Assets version 2017. We'll go through how to customize some fields, creating an asset, disposing an asset. We'll go through creating a template. We'll also look at Audit Advisor, creating some batch reports. I also am going to just do a quick look at a couple of other pieces that many people don't know are available as fixed assets, and that's the planning and tracking software. It is a separate piece of software, so I'll kind of give you a little bit of information on it, and then from there, you know, if it's something that's of interest, there'll be a completely separate demo webinar for those pieces. With that said, we're going to jump into Sage Fixed Assets. We'll be looking at a demo company in the system called Westfield Bakery. So it's a typical bakery, and so with our bakery, we have things like a donut cutter, we have trucks, we have buildings, we have mixers, everything you'll find in a bakery. When we log into Sage Fixed Assets, we have our assets screen, which gives us all of the attributes of the asset, the acquisition date, location, department. We also have a handful of user-defined fields that are available for us if we wanted to track location or serial number or the owner. So this view gives us a quick snapshot of what assets we have. In fact, at the beginning of the list, we can also identify if the assets are active or disposed. And we can certainly sort these assets ascending or descending. And you'll see later on that we can report off any of these by grouping them. So if we double click on an asset, we actually have what's called the asset list view. In the middle area here, we have our attributes of the asset. As I said before, the location, department, class, even our GL account numbers. And we have up to 10 custom fields that we can create to store attributes of the asset, which can be helpful because any of these attributes can be used for grouping and reporting. So if we wanted to say, show me all of my assets in the department facilities versus agriculture, that's where grouping our reports are going to come in handy. So this is our general information area. Now, you'll notice here there's some pull-down menus. How do we create pull-down menus in the system? And that's by customizing fields. At the very top toolbar, we have a Customize button. We have Customize Fields. And this area stores all of the attributes in this middle section. We have asset ID, class. So you'll see, the assets or the attributes are pretty familiar by name. And then we have up to 10 custom fields that we can store information. And when we click on the custom field, we can actually give it a title here. So when we go to our listing here and we see the warranty, okay, that's actually a customized field that we've created. And it's actually a customized date field. And we can specify a message for the user so that they know and what order of the listing it's going to appear. Now, I mentioned there's a pull-down menu for, let's say, department. That's activated by turning on the smart list. So we can check off the smart list. We can go to the smart list manager and we can start typing in what we want our pick list or a validation list to be. If I wanted to create a new one and I wanted to call this accounting operations, I could certainly do so, and I hit add, and there it is. And when I close out and I go to department, I now see accounting operations as one of the options in my pull-down menu. So customizing fields allows you to pretty much have the system ready to go so that data entry can be easy, and also reporting is very dynamic because we can group, filter, and report off of any of these attributes. The bottom area is our book information. This is essentially the nuts and bolts of our depreciation system. You'll see that we have 7 columns. Okay, we have 5 columns or 5 books that are standard books with the system, and then we have 2 other books which are custom books. That means that we can take any one asset and we can depreciate it for tax purposes, for internal purposes, for state, alternative minimum tax, accelerated, and we have most of our users can actually create a book for property taxes where you enter in the initial value and that asset or that book does not depreciate, so that we can run reports that we can then submit for property tax purposes. Okay, can't say I have a user that's used all the books, but certainly tax and internal are used most often. And you'll see when we create an asset, we're giving it the property type, which can be real, it can be property, it can be an intangible asset that's amortizable. We enter in the placed in service date. That may be different than the acquisition date. The system depreciates assets based on the placed in service date. So that's important. The acquisition value. The depreciation method, there is a whole host of depreciation methods, makers, acres, everything you've studied in an accounting course but have never used. And to this degree, I say most of our clients pretty much use straight line. So as much as there's all kinds of some of the year's digits, double declining balance, straight line is the most easiest to work with. So it's certainly the one we see most often. You can enter in your estimated life, your alternative depreciation life, if the asset was Section 179, or if you took bonus depreciation. You can enter in a salvage value, if there is an investment tax credit. So everything that you would do from an accounting point of view that dictates what the asset's value is, the basis, you'll enter it in here, and the basis is what's used to run depreciation. Once we have all of our information populated, running depreciation is as easy as coming to the top, clicking the depreciation button, and determining which books we want to run depreciation on, and selecting our date and running depreciation. Now in my system, it may take a minute to run depreciation on all the assets. But once it's done, you'll have a nice, easy to read, easy to utilize depreciation report that can be used for review. And at the very bottom, we have depreciation this run, which is a little bit high because it looks like we've last run depreciation on the system in 2014. So it's kind of doing a catch-up for us, but if we were to run it for August, we would see this as a more normal monthly balance. We also have year-to-date depreciation and current accumulated depreciation. So a very nice report, definitely more than what you'd get in running an Excel-based depreciation report. From there, if we wanted to, we can go to our reports and we can run a GL posting report. And what we'll find is it will take all of the assets, it will group it by one of those attributes, which was accumulated depreciation and our depreciation expense, and it will give us the entry needed to book our $726,000 entry. Okay. In addition to running depreciation and running a GL posting report, there's certainly a whole host of other reports in here. There's an annual activity, there's a fixed asset summary. There are essentially lots of variations of the same data. We're essentially taking all of our attributes, and if we wanted to group them, we can certainly do so, and we can say, go ahead and group by the department, and we're going to put a subtotal and a page break, and I'm going to run it for all of my assets. And we're going to slice and dice this data any which way we want. And we'll give that a minute for it to run, which again is so much more better than having assets in an Excel spreadsheet where we simply are maybe able to put the asset description, maybe the department. In this system, we're able to track so many more attributes to the assets, and thus we can run any of our reports based on location, department, GL account number. And this report has taken just a little bit longer to run. Looks like we're there. And so we now have our fixed asset report, which is giving us our asset basis, our accumulated depreciation. You could see that we're now running this for our department agriculture. The next page is for our department corporate office, and so on. So we have the ability to slice and dice reports in any fashion, thus providing us pretty background and basis for our journal entries. Now, a couple of other things I will show you about the software. Disposals, if we were taking our asset, okay, and we wanted to dispose of it, it's very easy. We can open up the asset. We can go into our asset tab, or we can go to our task, and we simply, oops, let's go here. Let me go to an open asset, and we're going to dispose of it. We're going to put a disposal date, and this asset was fully depreciated, but we're going to go ahead and put cash proceeds of $100, and we're going to calculate our net gain or sale for our asset. We can then print out a worksheet, which again is going to give us the basis for booking our net gain or loss. We have our acquisition value, our accumulated depreciation, okay? Our net proceeds, which gives us the net gain or loss. And again, all this is stored with the asset, so we have definitely full audit capabilities of the transaction. We can enter in notes for that transaction. We can enter notes for the asset. We can also enter in images for the asset. If we go to an asset that has an image, oops, go to our bread molder, we can attach an image to that asset, so that may be helpful for someone to know where that is. And any history on the asset is stored with the system. So a couple of things that I want you to be aware of. Let's say that we have a bread molder that is in our bakery and we want to use as a template. What we can do is we can save this asset as a template. I'm going to call this my bread makers. And I'm going to hit OK. If I were to create a new asset, add an asset, okay, I can now apply the template called bread makers, and it's going to go ahead and bring over as much information about that asset from the template. So we can save an asset as a template, and it'll pretty much be the basis for replicating it. And then we can come in here and essentially change our acquisition date and acquisition value, and we're set. So creating templates are a quick way to store as many attributes about a group of assets and quickly apply the template to the asset. In addition, under reports, we have the ability to not only adjust reports, but create a folder of reports you want to run. So in our case, we have a batch name called monthly close. If I edit the batch, you'll see that it has depreciation expense, disposal, transfer, fixed asset summary, GL posting, net book value. These are all the reports I want to run on a monthly basis. I simply have created the batch. I can run the batch, and it will essentially run all of these reports for me at one time without having to go one by one by one by one. So creating batch reports certainly helpful from a month-end basis. If you're doing property taxes, if you're doing forecasting, you can create different types of batches for different purposes. In addition, there is let's go to our help. There is a very nice area of help where we can go out to Sage's website. We can go to knowledge base. We can essentially have all kinds of information, not just on the product, but on how to depreciate assets in general. Okay, there's industry links to the IRS, the FASB, as well as state tax laws. So a whole host of information down below in the Assistance Center is available. If I go out to the online community, it brings me right out to Sage's website, Sage City, specific to the fixed assets system. In addition, I'm going to give you just a quick overview of a couple of other pieces of software that that is also available, and we've had a few requests over the years. Some clients may not be aware of the fact that we do have two other pieces of software in the system. One is called Sage Fixed Assets Planning. The other one is Sage Fixed Assets Tracking. These are separate install, or I should say, these are separate packages from depreciation. Okay, the planning tool is best used for if you're building, let's say, a building, you're a real estate company. If you are in software development and you have to capitalize assets or capitalize expenses before that asset becomes realizable, that can be handled in this area, because again, with Sage Fixed Assets, what you're looking at is essentially an asset once it's become an asset. Well, if you're dealing with software, or if you're dealing with real estate at times, or even project-based, if you're building software, all of your costs for the software essentially get capitalized until the time that you complete the software, and at that point it becomes an asset that gets moved over into the fixed asset system. So if we take a look at that software, which is the planning module, it kind of looks like Sage Fixed Assets once we get in there. If we essentially have a new project and we give this project a name called software billing that we're creating, we can give it a description, billing software, and we can put an estimated start and end date. We can give it a budget of $500K. We can now start adding expenses to this project, and from there we can start tracking what our expenses were as compared to our budget, and we can start adding line items to this project, which are essentially costs, and we can say that we're going to capitalize and expense it. So it's a good way for us to track all the expenses for a project. A little bit similar to our job cost module in Sage 100, but in this case it's essentially outside, doesn't really touch the GL. So everything in here would be really to the job, but not really touching the GL of your ERP system, but gives us, all kinds of ability to enter in costs, enter in transactions, store it to an asset. When we're done with, in this case, software, where the software is ready for consumption, for use, or for sale, we can then move this asset with its total cost over into this system for it to be amortized. So a robust package for dealing with a project before that asset becomes an asset. In addition, there is one more piece called tracking. What tracking allows us to do is track, let's say you have computers and it goes from one person to the other, or you have a piece of machine that moves around the building. Not only can we store the attributes of the asset, okay, but we have the ability to check in and check out. So we can essentially find out where that asset has been moving since its inception in this system. Okay, in addition, this module can be connected to a handheld device that kind of resembles a smartphone, and you can barcode your assets, and you can check in, check out, you can move them, and it'll all get recorded in this module. Okay, so not only are you just capturing your assets information here, but with the tracking module, you can actually track its movement around your company at all times. So again, most of our clients aren't really aware that these two add-ons to Sage are available, but they are, and certainly give the fixed asset package a lot more power. With that said, that pretty much concludes our presentation. Sherry, you can certainly open up the floor to questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Robert. I am currently unmuting all lines. And if you have any questions, please feel free to speak up. Any questions?
No questions.
No questions. Well, hey, if something does come up or you think of something a little later, please feel free to reach out to me at AM for account manager, am@goism.com, and I'll get you some answers. Other than that, Robert, I want to thank you for your time today and showing us this presentation and explaining the FAS product. We are going to be doing some more demos and webinars on the FAS product coming up in the next month. I've just been notified, so maybe we can meet again at that time. In the meantime, please take a look at our event calendar. We've got lots of webinars going on this month, some on some of our new custom solutions, etc., as well as our lunch and learns. So everyone, thank you for your time. Robert, thank you for a great presentation, and everyone have a wonderful day. Goodbye.